Welcome back, everyone, to 1 Million Minds. How are you, Balaji?
Hey Rajni, I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Doing well. As feels like we talk about all this stuff every day, but I know we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks, I think. But I'm excited. It's again just like we talked about every week, something new is coming out. So let's jump into it. We have a few topics to cover, but this one is interesting to me because we done a lot of our proof of concept. But every time I do this conversation, I focus on Claude at this point is when your conversation get longer and longer because I want to keep all of my conversations in one place about a particular topic, and then it gives me a warning saying, "Hey, this has gotten too big. You want to start a new chat, right?" But but I would wish we had so then I have to take some of those PDFs, put it as a project, and then just chat with that. So I have to come kind of overcome this, but I've always wished we could have more memory so it remembers what we talked about rather than every conversation is unique. So that's what I'm excited to hear. That OpenAI expands ChatGPT memory and be testing a new model. But what it does is almost now you can have a personal assistant because the more you talk to it, the more they'll know. And not just one conversation across all of your conversation, it will remember that. So I know a lot of other folks are thinking about permanent memory or more memory, increasing the context. I think it just makes the user experience better, but there's pros and cons to it. So I just want to hear your thoughts on it before I jump into some people's adverse reaction to this. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, Rajni. I think I'm one of those people, right? So I think the adverse reaction, I wouldn't call it adverse reaction, but I think even in humans, we see the same thing, right?
Mhm.
There is a huge difference between a person who remembers everything to a person who doesn't remember everything. Okay. So I
True.
say that because when you remember every single detail of everything, your response or your talk track is completely different when compared to a person who remembers key aspects. And so I think a lot of work is in this AI is going to be around what to remember and when to remember and when to recall, right? I personally think,
Sorry, I have to say this because you are saying your AI assistant is going to become your wife and remember everything that you
oh
did wrong.
man, okay. See,
That's what I heard.
but this is, I think it's a real world example. But you absolutely. I think that's what everybody as a human you feel that, right? It's not like we have seen so many movies where what if you know the future, what happens in many of these cases, it's
Yeah.
always the same, it's the same ending, right? If someone remembers everything, it's not desirable. If someone can see the future, it's not desirable. So as humans, we exist somewhere in between, right? We often think about what the world would be like that, but eventually we give up. I mean, it's not going to help anything. So what I am trying to say is, um, I see this world of AI evolve into the same thing we do as humans, right? There's a short term memory and a long term memory. A short term memory might remember a lot of details, but the long term is when you sleep, it summarizes and based on what you think you are preserving in your brain, it's going to collate all that and summarize and store. And that's how we are able to recall. We again, personally, I feel when you recall from your long term, probably you don't remember every single detail, but you remember the high level aspects. And yes, like you said, my wife can probably recall everything from long term memory with the exact detail, but it's a different way of remembering things, right?
Yeah, I mean it's very fair, right? Like because I've had this conversation with multiple people who apparently were offended years ago. I don't remember it at all, but they remember exactly when and where it happened. Right? Just not my wife. Apparently, I offended a lot of people. But what I remember is we had a conversation. Like I remember a version of the conversation. To be able to and for example, some of the tweets people are going back to deleting because you also evolve your thinking and your opinion on things, right? But if you go back to this and you said something 4 years back and then you are changing it might bias you to what you were when you were uninformed. So I can see that, but I can't get over the fact that they are building an AI bestie who knows you well and can be your best friend and your advisor. That's great as long as it doesn't turn out to be your wife or your girlfriend's level of pettiness. No, wait, I should say pettiness of remembering only things you did wrong. That would be a problem. But I think sometimes it's good to have this. I see a very useful use case for this, but sometimes it's also good to. What I'm saying is, if it starts anchoring and basically mirroring what you are doing and what your thoughts are, is how good of an advisor, how good of a sounding board is it going to become, right? So those are a
Correct.
couple of things that I'm
Correct.
thinking about. Yeah.
That's one more thing I'll add to it, right? I see a lot of this effort towards remembering everything, right? What about
Hmm.
forgetting, right? That's something nobody talks about, right? That's a key aspect of
Yeah.
all of this thing, right? And if you remember everything, you should also have a way to forget selective pieces of information and what
Agree.
development is being done, or what we have to probably look into material to see whether anybody is making progress, because that's very key. To If you remember everything, when how not to recall things that you don't care about, that's first thing. Or maybe selectively forget without completely training the whole system from the beginning. Those are the key things I watch out in this particular space.
Agree. But moving on to another big topic from OpenAI is they have a, if I'm saying the name right, Quasar Alpha.
Quasar.
Apparently has a
Quasar.
massive 1 million token. Uh, of course, it's free at this alpha state. And it is available in open router, 4 times faster than the latest cloud models. Very strong coding abilities. So I mean, models are coming fast and furious. I will talk a little bit more about the state of AI a little bit later. But it's also Gemini. I don't know if you've read about this. It's the 2.5 Pro is crushing benchmarks, and a bunch of upgrades are coming. So Microsoft is doing their own thing with their own memory for Copilot. So everybody is basically doubling down on the memory, so it makes it feel like more of a digital companion than just a thing that you have a conversation and you walk away, right? So I think everybody is like Google's doing well, Microsoft, OpenAI, Cloud's bringing something. They also are bringing in what, like a $200 all you can eat kind of a thing for their process, because I think it's also starting to first bigger and faster models are coming in. We'll talk a little bit more, but there's a cost associated with it. So how do you get that cost? Is can Cloud at the 20, now they have a 5x more than that is 100, and then 20x more is 200. So each person, they're starting to segregate their clientele, and also make some money back from all of the money they've invested. So it's definitely lots of good things coming. It's good for us as a consumer. But have you had? I don't know if you've had a chance to play with any of these.
Um, I, I mean, specifically, what do you mean? Like play with? We have been playing with
Like
a
a
lot of stuff.
Gemini 2.5 Pro or anything.
Uh,
I have not seen
no,
it. All I've
I
heard is
my
nothing.
playground, yeah, my playground is mostly the later versions of Anthropic, the Sonnet and the Claude, and also
Got
the
it.
Open AI versions. Um, from the beginning, I have maybe because they are latecomer to the field, I have never focused on Gemini. Probably it's time to focus on Gemini as well. Slowly, they're catching up in the benchmarks, right? And at some point, Rajni,
Mhm.
these benchmarks are going to change, because it's always the same until you get to 85%. Everybody's at 85%. Then now change the rules, right? And then start figuring
Everybody
it
gets
out
a
again,
medal today.
right?
Yeah. I agree. I think these need to change because I think the field is evolving, and we still are stuck to some benchmarks that might not even be hard to beat for any even free models at this point, right? So I
Right.
agree with that. This needs to evolve. Maybe I think we talked about it. This like we can maybe come up with some use cases on, hey, build me something, a code for something, or write an article about this, whatever that is. 5 questions that are or draw a picture for me. Is this something that uses different parts of the LM, and then we put it to each one of these new coming upcoming, so that we can say we have our own benchmark and it did 4 out of 5. So I think it'll be interesting, just because those other ones. How many times are you really going to use your LM to write a test? Maybe not. Maybe
Exactly,
not.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the better example is the customer satisfaction number score, right? That every company has. That type of metric should evolve, right? And in a sense, it's
Correct.
more collected aggregate of all the people who are experiencing the system, how they feel, how good it is serving, rather than writing a test. Yeah, writing a test. We are at the early stages, right? It's almost like a student going to college and passing the exam, right? When you put them in the real world, that's a whole different ballgame.
Correct. I think it will be good to, if whether we do it or somebody does it, where they say, hey, these are 10 real life use cases for doing this, whether it's like extracting information from a PDF and making unstructured data to structured, drawing something, or like some what we will use in LLM rather than random things that to me doesn't make sense. Because when you do benchmarks for the back when I was interested in this was when they buying a computer, you're looking at what kind of processing this if you play
Correct.
this game which is very graphic intense, how does it work, right? That made sense because I wanted to buy the best one for playing my video games, but this one just feels very arbitrary at this point.
It does, and on top of that, Rajni, I would like to add that it's slowly becoming multi LLM and agentic, and so it's a complex system that's evolving, right? How do you benchmark? It's like, yeah, one
Mhm.
thing to benchmark a CPU and a disk and memory, right? That's individual elements
Mhm.
that are fabricated in your chipset, and but this is now become already a complex system, right? A query going through a agentic system might score this way for that question. What about the second question? What about the third question? Because it's going to take multiple paths, hit multiple LLMs.